Jem and Jen, everyone. This is Clément from Commit, and today I'm with Arnaud from BNB Chain. Arnaud, please, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Clément, for hosting me today as well. So I'm Arnaud Bauer from BNB Chain. I'm a senior solution architect, and I'm working with BNB Chain Foundation in helping on the growth of the ecosystem of BNB Chain from a core technical point of view, and as well on the use cases that we can build and deliver to the community.
Awesome. Um, I usually start my podcast with one simple question, which is, could you sell me your project in 30 seconds? The fact that everybody always know BNB Chain, I would go with, how could you convince me that BNB Chain is a real decentralized blockchain?
Sure. So let's say in 30 seconds to BNB Chain is like the most, let's
No,
say,
but
active L1.
yeah.
In terms of the decentralization, we are improving actively our number of validator as well, and our consensus in order to be able to accept more validator and more decentralization as well within the node that can join the network or within the infrastructure provider as well. So we are making sure that all our infrastructure providers are quite decentralized and are, let's say, providing different solutions for our community as well.
Okay. Uh, Thank you very much for that. What is the influence currently of Binance in BNB's development?
I would say it's minimal or near zero. So I know initially Binance created, let's say, the Binance Smart Chain, but then it has been rebranded on BNB Smart Chain, and we are quite separate from Binance. So it's more maybe they're giving us some tips and tours about maybe the trend, but we are really independent and working actively in building more the community in terms of developers, use cases, and dApps as well. So it's we don't really see them anymore.
Okay, but in the first place, Binance was,
Mm.
really active in everything revolving around the Binance Smart Chain.
Right. Initially, it was the Beacon chain, which was kind of the DEX of Binance, which was BNB Beacon chain, which was that's the first one. But then has been created the BNB Smart Chain, which is more like the layer one EVM compatible as well, which is within the BNB ecosystem, which is really here for builders to be able to deploy DeFi application like NFTs and so on. So that's really the growth of the BNB ecosystem as well with this let's say, universal, let's say there's multiple solutions based on a different need of different project on top of it.
Okay, awesome. Recently, I could say that recently, like there's a surge in DeFi hacks and smart contracts vulnerability. Sorry, but in the meantime, it's been quite a long time that we see so many hacks, exploits, and stuff like that. What are the measures currently used by BNB Chain to ensure that its security is on point?
Right, definitely. I mean, after as a decentralized network, you cannot really, let's say, have a high control of what people are deploying on your network, because at the end it's the developer itself which is pushing their own code, and sometimes of course there are some let's say, development in some specific function that can enable some, let's say, hack to be happened. So this is something that we are aware of as well, and definitely something that we are trying to actively push for. Let's say there's a community initiative which is called Avenger DAO on BNB ecosystem, which is really here to provide feedback as well to users before they potentially, let's say, sign a transaction. To be integrated, for example, with Trust Wallets or with Pancake Swap as well. For example, before you are doing any swap, there's a specific button which is scan risk. So the user can scan the risk, and then it's coding a specific, let's say, community initiative, which is then assessing, let's say, the smart contract based on, okay, how old is this smart contract? Who has been deploying this contract? Is there any audit report that has been published? Is the smart contract, for example, transparent or not? So based on those, let's say, information, this specific initiative is able to give, let's say, some scoring on this specific contract to know, let's say, the risk level. So of course, the contract, for example, which is not publicly transparent and where we don't know the creator of it, this is usually, let's say, a high flag in terms of potential scam or rug pull. So usually, like the community, we try to enforce them to potentially not interact with such kind of contracts and privilege, let's say, projects which are more transparent, open, which are doing audit and verification on top of that contract, and which are as well like bringing more ownership of themselves to ensure that there is more like trust inside this community as well.
So maybe you see where I'm going with that. Like it's like maybe 1 year ago, CZ asked asked the validators to halt the blockchain due to some big exploits. Do you think this is something that still can happen today? Asking the validators to just pause the blockchain to figure out what's going on.
So first of all, it was not CZ who asked the validator, let's say, to halt the chain. It was more, let's say, the validator themselves who, let's say, are coordinating together, trying to understand what is happening and what they can do again to, like, let's say, mitigate the risk. So what happened, it was, I would say 11 months ago or 10 months ago now, where, like you say, like something happened within, let's say, the bridge between the Beacon chain and the BNB Smart Chain. So due to, let's say, misconfiguration within the library in terms of security, like someone was able to exploit the specific connection bridge between the Beacon chain and the Smart Chain. And of course, like then the validator discussed together, trying to see like, okay, what can be the different measures that we can do in order to protect first the chain and the users, which are as well on top of the chain. So it's like, how can we protect user when something like this is happening? So they all agreed together, let's say, in a coordinating way to potentially, let's say, halt the chain, fix it, and then restart it again. So there is no, let's say, rollback would happen. So which means that the chain didn't start, let's say, in a point in back, in a past point before the hack. It just started straight when they hacked it as well. So that's how it happened. Basically, it was just more or less like the validator who coordinated, let's say, stopped it in order to be able to fix the specific library, which was part of the core protocol, in order to be able to restart and make sure that there is no second hack which can happen on top of it.
Okay, awesome. I've seen that there are lots and lots of development currently inside the BNB Galaxy. Could you explain what are the most crucial elements in BNB's chain tech roadmap for the next, let's say, months? Because
Right.
years might be like really really heavy, but at least for the next 2 to 3 quarters.
Right. And if we talk in years, like usually the community is not too excited as well. So usually they like to know what's about to come, like within a few weeks, days, or months, like you said. So definitely the community is actively working on multiple, let's say, stream. One, which is, let's say, the BSC, so the BNB Smart Chain, which is working on the decentralization, on the, let's say, scalability as well, and the robustness over layer one. Then there's two mainstream, which is one, which is the BNB Greenfield, which is more decentralized storage network, which is trying to bring, let's say, true, let's say, we talk a lot about data economy on top of Web3, but how we can really create monetization of data is something that we've been looking for within the community. And that's where like BNB Greenfield, this specific white paper was released, I think, last January. So it's been almost 9 months now, where it's the kind of a decentralized storage network where people can directly, it's going to have a native integration within BNB Smart Chain. So people can programmatically sell file or transfer ownership of a specific file. So that's more on the storage part. And then there's a high stream as well from the community, which is working on the scalability aspect of the BSC network. So we all know that the BSC is really like, let's say, much cheaper than other L1 and are quite scalable as well in terms of transaction per second. Nevertheless, there's as well some stream which is working heavily on what is called the opBNB, which is a layer 2 built on OP stack. So basically, it's a layer 2 on top of the BSC network to really bring more scalability on the BNB Smart Chain. And opBNB, since it's built on OP stack as well, it is fully EVM compatible. So it's something where like our developers community is really like keen in exploring in order to easily, let's say, build up a decentralized application on top of it.
Okay, and what sets the BNB chain apart from all the blockchains in terms of security?
I would say what sets us apart is more, let's say, the strong infrastructure that our validator are providing and our, let's say, infra provider. So thanks to, let's say, our high throughputs and our scalability position, as well, like with the low transaction cost, we are able to acquire one of the largest Web3 community in Web3 in a sense. So in terms of active user, we are usually reaching, let's say, the first active Alt L1 in terms of user with more than 1 million active user. So it's true that 1 million active user doesn't seem a lot compared to Web2 application, but in Web3, it's still already a good achievement. And we are trying to achieve even further. So in terms of infrastructure, we already have such a large number of user base that our infra provider worked heavily as well on the resilience of the network, which means building, let's say, strong RPC connector or strong wallets, which are as well able to cope with the number of like activity that our network is having. So I would say that's kind of our strong point, which is really, let's say, the resilience and the scalability of our network or infrastructure as a whole.
Okay. Let's go back to the opBNB, because it's something really thriving. zk-rollups, optimistic rollups, that they are getting a lots and lots of attention these days. And why? The question is pretty obvious. Why are you launching like two new L2s, opBNB and zk-BNB?
Right. They all have, let's say, different use cases as well and different characteristic and maybe different security model that maybe some community might prefer one over the other. So of course, we're trying to be neutral. Let's say the community of BNB Chain try to be in terms of development. We are a bit neutral into like maybe which direction to take in terms of layer 2 scalability solution. After actively looking in what's happening as well on L2 on top of Ethereum or on other chain, we believe that, for example, the OP stack is something that is really widely used and battle tested by the community. And especially, as you know, it's providing EVM compatibility for developers. So which is something that is really interesting in terms of, let's say, for builders, for different use cases. So we can see it like on ETH on different L2. Usually there's one L2 with one specific, let's say, DApp, which is really utilizing the solution because it's really, they're able to leverage high transaction speed with low transaction cost to build new use cases or reinvent existing use cases, but really make it more scalable. So this is one of the reasons we decided as well to launch opBNB on top of the OP stack, because it's really providing this development framework for people to easily migrate, let's say, L1 use cases into an L2 and make it really viable due to the low transaction cost and high speed. The zk-BNB, it's more, let's say, linked to, I would say, fast transaction confirmation and low withdrawal time as well. And it's mainly, let's say, for token transfer. So for example, standard ERC20 or NFT. So there is no, let's say, capability yet to build or to deploy an EVM compatible smart contract on top of a zk BNB. But this is where, let's say, the opBNB is more here for those developers. But as you know, within the OP stack, there's a withdrawal, let's say, time window that people need to wait before being able to withdraw fund back to the L1. So there's, let's say, different threshold and different pro and cons for each solution. So we believe that providing potentially both solutions can help for community to be even more, let's say, dynamic in building new use cases or trying to explore more, let's say, scalable solution for the future.
So you are going to compete directly with Optimism or zk-sync or Starknet?
We're not trying to compete in opposition. We're trying to contribute as well. So this is where opBNB. So we made a few, let's say, changes within the OP stack where we're trying to push as well some changes to their stack in order to, let's say, bring a higher innovation within the whole Web3 community. On my side, I don't believe that there's going to be one winner. So for example, one L2, which is going to win all of the use cases. As we can see already today, there is, for example, Base, which have like one or two big killer dApp, which are having a lot of activity. But as we can already see, it's kind of congestioning the L2 as well. So we can see that each layer 2 has, let's say, their own use cases a little bit. So it's really that there's no, let's say, competition in terms of L2, because you believe that there's going to be multiple L2s which can utilize, let's say, the main stack, which currently is the OP stack. So being able to contribute back to the community and bring as well more, let's say, innovation or manpower to this base stack, because OP stack is like a modularized framework for people who want to build layer 2. So we believe that it's important as well that our community is contributing in terms of development and making it more robust to potentially attract more companies who would like to launch their own layer 2 as well.
Sure. In my opinion, I mean, I've been using Binance in the early days. I've been using also the BNB chain, BSC chain, like when it was still the BSC chain. And I should say that it's been quite a long time since I've been using some DApps, DeFi and stuff like that. But I've seen the evolution, and with a landscape as complex as the BNB Galaxy, how do you expect users to navigate and understand the various components? Like, for example, you have the BNB Beacon chain, you have the BNB chain, you have opBNB, you have zk-BNB. Don't you think that chasing multiple rabbits at the same time will some kind of dilute the value of each project and lose your users?
It's a good point. It's a good question. It's a good narrative as well that you're exploring here. It can potentially, let's say, segregate the user into multiple, let's say, landscape and make them maybe harder to reach. I think it's really where we are trying to provide as well a lot of, where we are trying to discuss heavily with, for example, wallet provider or dApp builder, because we believe it's more like, say, a UI and a user experience issue more than a protocol, for example, issue, because switching, for example, as of today, switching from one network to the other might still be a bit complicated from a UI or UX perspective. But we believe that in the next few months, it's something that's going to be, let's say, more hidden for the user. So a user is not even going to really be able to understand in which layer or which protocol is currently interacting with. It's just going to be an application for him where it's logged into a specific application, is playing with it, and that's all. So I think it's more on the user experience in terms of wallets or dApp that need to be, let's say, reshaped a little bit to make it more seamless for users to just utilize blockchain, but without knowing exactly at which layers they are active. After it's more, I would say, for experienced user where they really want to, let's say, for example, settle back with an L1 or at the settlement layer where those potential more experienced users really want to have a high control of their assets on chain, but maybe that's not something for all the users as of today. So I think we should have different approach for different type of users as well.
Okay, that's a very fair point. You previously mentioned BNB Greenfield. So you are expanding your services with again BNB Greenfield. What are the benefits of having a decentralized storage like this? Is this again some kind of competitor to Filecolor Green?
So I wouldn't say competitor. It's trying to address the market of decentralized storage for sure, and especially in terms of programmability. So adding a programmable layer on top of data. So this is where Greenfield is really focusing on. But at the same time, bringing more Web2 oriented, which means that, for example, the APIs that are going to be provided for the developers are going to be more Web2 oriented in terms of, let's say, upload and download. The same for the, let's say, upload or download speed. It's going to be really close or equal to the standard, let's say, Amazon Web, let's say, S3 bucket that developers are used to use. So this is going to be really familiar for, let's say, Web2 developer to upload or download files. But having this connectivity with a blockchain and with, let's say, really the ownership of my assets using your wallet and your private keys is something that we are trying to bridge using BNB Greenfield, where, for example, you are hosting your podcast here today, you are providing it maybe for free on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, but being able, for example, to own, let's say, or provide a service where people can subscribe on chain and really have access thanks to the subscription to the file itself without passing through a third party is something that we believe is quite important for the future of Web3.
Sure. Well, that's why this is a valid question. Assertion. This is why the podcast is also completely. It's completely free, and it's also available for Web3 native people on Lens Protocol, for example. So yeah, definitely.
Exactly. Yeah, Lens Protocol is already a good use case for such kind of solutions. But then the question is like, if we compare, for example, with Arweave, Filecoin, or IPFS, for example, there's still in the industry, let's say, a lack of high infrastructure in order for people to download or upload at, let's say, high speed connection capability. So this is why we are trying as well to bring a new paradigm into this decentralized storage network.
So you better build it like in-house instead of relying on a partnership with a decentralized storage protocol. It's do you think you clearly you think it's better to build it like in-house than working with
So
someone else?
it's a new architecture. So it was really not possible, for example, to reuse something that was already like in the Web3 space. So the development is like open source and it's publicly available. So we have as well some community members which are building on top of it and which are helping to really like shape this new product. So it's not something that we do, let's say, ourselves in-house. It's more, it's a community initiative as well, where we have a lot of builders from around the world which are really building this new protocol. But it's more, let's say, alternative solution and a new way to think, let's say, decentralized storage.
Okay. So it will be the last question before jumping on the second part. Many blockchain and protocols and whatever you want to call it, project whatsoever, they aim to onboard, and I think it was the narrative since the beginning of 2023 to onboard the next billion users. But isn't the primary challenge currently centered around addressing security first, scalability, and most importantly, the utility of blockchain technology?
That's a good point. So definitely, I believe that you touch multiple layers as well about technology. This is where we need to, I think, segregate as well the different roles within this technology. We have, let's say, the core builder, which I want to say, and I would say before the builder, like the core builder, we have the researcher, which are like here researching on new use cases, new security model. For example, Vitalik, which is like a real researcher in this core where it can really like think for like the next few years, like what could potentially be the roadmap, what are the bottlenecks, and how we could potentially address it from a research perspective. But then after the researcher, I would say there's a layer of like builders, it's a core developers, which are which are applying those research into, let's say, a code itself to build the protocol itself. So we have, for example, like ETH, we have different L1, or we have like Bitcoin, which was the first one as well. So those, I would say this is one stream. Then which are, let's say, focusing on specificity, like can be scalability, can be decentralization. Right now, there's a lot of discussion into, for example, the state expiry. So as you know, like a ledger is basically a database which is growing and growing. So in 10, 15 or 20 years from now, there's going to be a lot of data on chain. So how do we manage those, let's say, growing size within the ledger? So this is more like a researcher and core builder. But then on top of that, we have maybe more entrepreneur, which are more like building decentralized application and trying to find true use cases. As you said, like, is this technology really viable? Can we really use it? So I would say this is more like the entrepreneurship level where we have people which are trying to create, for example, NFT project, which are trying to bridge, let's say, real world asset into an on-chain asset as well, using maybe NFT, for example, as a technology. Then we have the users, which are more, for example, you and me, which are trying to utilize this network as well. And then we have investors as well. So I say that there's a lot of multiple players, and each of them are focusing on different problematics. But definitely, I do agree with you. Like, for example, the security is something that we should really put a lot of effort into it. And this is at all level of the, let's say, the supply chain, if I can say so. Because like the researcher are talking about security as well, then the core protocol developers are trying to develop more security, but then the builder, I would say there's a lack of ownership and responsibility currently in terms of like builders which are building decentralized application, which are not necessarily doing the right effort to provide, let's say, clean, transparent, smart contracts, auditing this contract. The key management is something that is quite important as well. So how the keys are held by a project and how it is, for example, dispatched in multiple location or dispatched within multiple community as well. So I think there's a lot of framework that can be built in terms of, as you say, security first. Otherwise, like the more we are growing, the more risk we are going to create as well for people which are transacting on chain.
Sure. Perfect. Well, thank you very much. So we are entering the second part of this podcast. So this is the yay or nay questions. So to summarize it, you have 11 questions, one joker. These jokers allow you to not answer if you do not want to answer one question. You can only answer by yes or no. And when you're ready to start, let's go.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, let's go. Do you see BNB as an Ethereum killer?
Can I, let's say once I say yes or no, can I add more justification on top of it as well?
Yes, you can.
I would say no. The question is because I don't believe that there's anyone which want to kill anyone else as well. I think there is like definitely like place and utility for two or multiple, let's say layer one as well, because there's so much different use cases that I believe like we are each providing different value. So I don't think that we are a killer of ETH. That's not our aim, I would say.
Okay. Is BNB Chain fully decentralized?
Yes.
Will you accept to be paid in FDUSD?
FD, no.
It's the new BUSD.
Yeah, I mean, we are paid in fiat, so I'm not paid in crypto.
Don't you think that there are too many L2s?
No.
You already answered this question, but is crypto a winner-takes-all market?
Yes, I think so.
Are NFTs overrated JPEGs?
I would say no. NFT, I think we are only seeing like the tip of the iceberg of NFT, and there is so much more to it that we don't realize yet, I believe.
Are you a BNB maximalist?
No.
Is growth more
I'm a crypto.
Is growth more important than security?
No.
Is crypto more complex today than 10 years ago?
Definitely.
Do you think people working in this industry really understand what they are doing right now?
Not all of them.
And the last question, is BNB Chain set to forever tied to Binance?
No.
Perfect. Thank you very much. You passed the test. Okay.
Oh, I forgot I had a joker. I should have used it maybe once or twice.
Once only, but yeah. Well, thank you very much, Arnaud. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining this podcast.